Raw, real, and just a little dangerous. This is Feral.
Today, we've been talking a lot about the emotions that have kind of been surrounding all of us.
Shoot.
And we're hearing lots about shame. We're hearing lots about grief. We're hearing lots about joy. We're hearing lots about courage. And underneath all of that, there's this thing of muchness, enoughness,
Too
rest,
muchness.
too muchness, but also rest. Like, when the muchness runs out, is it okay if I need to restore the muchness? And all of this brings me back to one of the most treacherous saboteurs I've ever seen in my own life and in the life of so many people I love, which is your specialty, one of many, but one of the main, which is imposter syndrome. And when you say make imposter syndrome your superpower, I know that that's more than a pretty title because I've experienced it. I've lived it. I've done it. But it's really something that I think people need to understand about themselves because of the freedom you feel after and also the tremendous act of self-forgiveness. And so there's a lot in Jen's wonderful book, Make Imposter Syndrome Your Superpower. There's
Is
a
that the
lot.
Jen Coken edition or the Jen Coken?
The Coken edition. We'll talk about that.
Excellent.
This is the right one. But so this book has a lot. It's geared toward women in STEM to help them lead and more, but I think also for an entrepreneurial audience,
It's for
leads
everybody.
to,
It just so happens that's my target market.
but for
right?
us specifically, for entrepreneurs specifically, I think it's so critical when it comes to self-forgiveness, to regaining self-trust, and to restore self-efficacy
Yes.
in terms of like, maybe I'm not a complete piece of shit. And also, maybe the thing in me that's giving me pause means that my head's on straight, my heart's in the right place, but I'm also misapplying some energy. So I'm going to stop telling your spiel and I'm going to let you tell your spiel. But I wanted to give everybody a little bit of context of why are we talking about this? Why are we talking about this at the end of the day? And it's because there's been big feels today. And you may be thinking, who am I to confront these big feels? And you may be thinking, who am I to, who am I to have them? Who am I to move through them? Who am I to solve them with other people? And maybe it's not even about the feels. Maybe you're like, listen, I'm not a feels person. I'm a goals person, but who am I to have these goals? Okay, whatever, rock and sock 'em. But I knew Jen was walking the talk because I've seen her do it for years. But when Jen's publisher put this book out, and I can say this because we're in my space, Jen's publisher, the Cocken edition, got brought up. Jen's publisher put the book out with her name spelled wrong.
Yeah.
And that
And the title of the book spelled wrong.
and the title of the book spelled
and the
wrong.
wrong cover, one that I didn't approve.
And that could have spun off the worst imposter syndrome in the world. Who am I to write a book they can't even get my name right?
Yep.
And what I watched Jen do instead was turn it as an opportunity to lead and not only say, no, that is a violation of my boundary. No, that is a violation of my power, because the publisher basically said tough titty. The publisher basically said, no one's going to
read it. No one's going to notice.
And Jen, I have permission to share. Jen, instead of just taking it, not only said, I'm not going to honor that. We got Jen out of pieces of her contract. And she said, I also don't think you understand how dehumanizing it is to take a voice away from anyone, let alone a Jewish woman. And as a non-Jew in the conversation, it still was just so powerful to watch Jen be like, I don't think you understood the cultural ramifications of what you've done either. So Jen went from a situation where she could have just taken it like she was told to do and standing up and saying, actually, this is bigger than me. I claim what's mine. I'm not standing for that. And I'm going to find a way to make it bigger than me. And it was glorious. It was glorious. So with all that context in mind, Jen, a lot of people here are pivoting.
Yeah.
A lot of people here are scared. A lot of people here are bordering frantic unless they've already tipped it and they're on me and they're like in Looney Tune time. And I think underneath is this fear caused by uncertainty. And when good people who are service providers conditioned face against uncertainty, it makes so much sense to say, how am I going to fix this? And who am I to try? And that's why it was on my heart to bring you here and have you close us out in this way. And so with that said, I just want to give you some beautiful space to talk about your own background and how imposter syndrome came to be such a huge part of your work and how your own thinking about it has developed.
I love this. And thank you, Annie, so much. And I'm so glad to be here. Before I tell my story, let me first share a couple things. And one is just to give everybody a place to listen from as I'm talking. Because I could only imagine, like you see Alicia Barr do black sheep sales. You're like, I ain't never going to be selling like that lady. She's got it together. Or Keisha does her, you just got to find one channel and has this gorgeous PowerPoint. And you're thinking, I'm just wondering, right, that even as an entrepreneur, because I'm an entrepreneur, my business will officially be 10 years old at the end of June. There are so many moments where we doubt ourselves and we question ourselves and we go outside of ourselves to see if we have value or am I doing it right? Or all the, well, maybe they do it better than me and I need more voices. I need more input. Okay. I could hear myself throughout the day, and maybe other people have too. So I'm inviting you to listen to what I'm going to say. There's a lot of ways people listen to content. I agree. I don't agree. I know that. Oh, I kind of know that. Oh yeah, I tried that. It didn't work, etc. So what I would like you to do, I'm inviting you to do, is after your cup is so full today, after 2 days, right? 2 days of so many speakers, 30 minutes each, great content. You want to hear from everybody. You want to apply it all. You want to do it all. Let's just take a breath. Just take a breath and let's ground ourselves and just feel your butt in the chair wherever you are, your feet on the floor. Take some deep breaths. And I invite you to come from a space of curiosity. Not do you agree or disagree with what I'm going to say, but a wondering, I wonder how this could apply to me. I wonder what this is like. All right. That's number one. Number two, anything that's ever happened to me in my life, I have always made it about others, because that for me is the only way that I can find my voice, and many times. So when I was diagnosed with breast cancer 5 years ago and really only had a small sacred group I was talking to, and still running my company and still coaching clients through 2 surgeries and radiation, no chemo, thank God. When I could get to a place that I could author my own journey, we turned it into a whole #CheckYourChest campaign, because breast exams were down 40%. And it was my publicist at the time who did it said it was the most clicked on press release she'd ever sent out. And Annie's talking about my book. The thing I said to I'm giving you all this as part of the backstory of who I am and how I got to being an expert in my viewpoint about making imposter syndrome your superpower. When this happened, I had no idea what was going on. Annie happened to call me and be like, hey, dude, how's it going? I'm like, I'm great. Just got off all these calls. Everything is sunshine and roses. And that's, as she says, or said, that's when I got Tourette's syndrome. Because after she told me, I was kind of like dropping F-bombs left and right. And I wouldn't meet with the publisher for a month. Annie is actually the one who did the yeoman's work of getting me out of the contract and everything like that, because I had to collect myself. And the thing that really got me too was this, as a Jew, there were 12 tribes of Israel. There's 10 lost tribes. We don't know where they are. So as a still practicing Jew who comes from a long line of practicing Jews, that's saying something, that we survived thousands of years of people attempting to assimilate us, annihilate us, get rid of us, make us be something else. And my last name has never been changed. My grandparents came over from Russia. It was not changed in Boston. It has been the same last name. So when my publisher said, nobody's going to notice, I had to have a conversation with him about the historical significance of names, right? And we think about, even if we look at people of color, the historical significance of their roots, what countries they were enslaved from, captured from, brought over here. All of that is incredibly important to me. It could never. And by the way, yesterday, Annie, you don't even know this, somebody we know reached out to me because she wanted to have a conversation about why I say imposter syndrome is your superpower. And after sharing it all with her, she's like, oh, I'm going to start saying make imposter syndrome your superpower.
Wait, like,
I hired an attorney. So now we're trademarking that stuff, yada, yada, yada. But my point in saying all this is, in the moment, and Annie's watched this real time, I had massive imposter syndrome and I had to sort myself through it. Now, Let me back up a second. I spent 25 years in politics, okay, as a grassroots organizer and in the energy industry, working in male saturated industries, working in industries that were very directive, top down, authoritative. And that's who I became. And I left a lot of myself behind. I left my heart. I left my intuition. I left my femininity. I left my softness. I left my ability to lead from love. And it wasn't until I discovered that I had bifurcated myself, if that makes sense, that I began to see so much of it across all these systems and across all these industries that are traditionally have a lot of men in them, which is why my favorite clients to coach and to work with are women just like me, so that I can make them understand you don't have to leave your heart at home. By the way, shameless plug for my workshop tomorrow called
Yeah.
Wild Heart. Yeah, we'll be talking about that. What do you do when the world's on fire? Your hair's on fire and it's chaos and uncertainty. We'll actually be doing that during implementation day tomorrow. But having said all that, I really spent a lot of time thinking about what is it about, like, why do I feel like a fake or a fraud? Why do I question myself sometimes? Why do I, and the big thing for me was questioning myself. And I've had other coaches point out to me, like, when you've lost power, you question, you doubt yourself, right? So I did what I encourage every entrepreneur to do, to sit and think, to sit and stare out the window, to grab your coffee in the morning, your tea, whatever it is, and just have some quiet time, some solitude to think about, like, what the fuck you're up to and the impact you want to make and the legacy you want to leave behind and why. Because it's in those moments where ideas will start coming to you. And in thinking this through and thinking back on because at the same time I was in politics, I've also been a coach for over 25 years. So thinking about all that stuff, I began to see a pattern. And I began to study the neuroscience behind imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is not a problem, people. Let me just start with that. Imposter syndrome is not a problem. It's your superpower. Why? Because you and I have brains, and our brains have about 60,000 thoughts a day. And 85% of those damn thoughts are negative, and 90 to 95% are repetitive. We don't stand a chance unless we have an active act, I don't know, of rebellion against our own mindset, right? So what I found to a T in testing this thesis in workshops, whether 10 or 1,000 people or one-on-one or in small groups, is that each one of us to a T, man or woman, by the way, has had some moment that defined our version, our unique flavor of feeling uncertain, of questioning, of feeling like we have to know more, of what people call imposter syndrome, which, by the way, isn't a syndrome. A syndrome is a medical diagnosis. It's actually originally was coined imposter phenomenon because it's phenomenological. It's an as-lived experience. Why? Because all imposter syndrome is your amygdala. It's an amygdala hijack. It's a moment where the brain has an experience of threat, and the brain's designed to keep you and I safe, right? The thing it's a brain of. It's designed to keep us safe. So the brain, neuroscientists even tell us the brain's never dealing with reality. Let's sit with that one for a minute. We are never dealing with reality. We're only ever taking in information through all these filters and attempting to compartmentalize it and compare. So half the time, what we're saying isn't even real unless we check the facts. In fact, I was just having dinner with my boyfriend. We got in a little argument because I said, "You didn't tell me what time." He's like, "I did." I'm like, "I don't need this right now. I don't need the stress. I'm going to lead something." And then I looked through my text and there it is. I was like, "Honey, I'm sorry. So we're never dealing with reality, and it happens all the time." So what I have found is before the age of 12 or so, anybody has had any experience of either not belonging, or they have some scary experience with authority. It could be your dad yelling at you about a C on your report card. Could be a teacher calling you out. Could be feeling your own authority, like, I can't do that. You're asked to do something and you think you can't, kind of thing. And then the moment that happens, the brain is having an unwanted experience called a shame or embarrassment. And the brain's a smart cookie because the next moment it's going to figure out how to keep you safe from those negative emotions again. Does it? Not really, but the brain does what the brain does. And it comes up with a way around it to a T. Everyone I've talked to, every client, "Oh, I decided I got to get it right. Oh, I decided I'm going to show you." And that becomes your superpower. That becomes your success strategy. So instead of thinking experiencing imposter syndrome is a bad thing, understand it's your growth edge. It's the brain telling you you're on the skinny branches, you're taking a risk. And the only reason you have those heart palpitations and the sweaty palms and the, sphincter tightening,
Jen and I love the word sphincter.
I do like the word sphincter, is because you care. And you care deeply and you're committed to something so freaking big, a vision you have for the planet or people or yourself or your family or your community, or I don't care who. That's how come you're getting your undies in a bunch. That's how come imposter syndrome. Understand it's a brain pattern. And if you can identify and disrupt that brain pattern, you are golden. And here's what you do. The next time you have that moment of questioning yourself, doubting yourself, feeling, it's the same thing I did yesterday when that whole phone call went down, or with Annie. I just had to sit back and go, okay, this is the question. What's an earlier similar time this reminds me of?
Yeah.
Notice the thoughts, notice the feelings, notice the moods. What's an earlier similar time? What's an earlier similar time? And keep going back until you can get to the earliest, most similar time, and take the case you took some decision. You didn't even do it. The brain did.
Yeah.
What was that decision? Because the moment you can figure that out, man, you can disrupt it and see it all the time.
Jen, I'm so glad that you're putting it like this way, that's so clear, that's so powerful, because I just kind of had one of those like meta moments where I was lucky enough to go to one of Jen's retreats and do this in real time. And when people say they have grade school trauma, like I have grade school trauma with a capital T. And I've always kind of carried that as part of my story, but just been like, yes, I have grade school trauma. I am a grade school trauma survivor. I am a grade school suicide attempt survivor, and like carry these things like around with me, not as a badge of honor, but just as like something I know about myself. But I never really asked, like, how does being a grade school suicide survivor and everything that led up to that point make me who I am today?
Yeah.
And how does that show up? And I never really even thought about that until I did this exercise with you, where we talked about something in my business that happened in 2019 that was unbelievably demoralizing and humiliating. And you were like, okay, let's tap into that. What did it feel like? And I'm like, it felt like I was 12 and I was begging people to like me all over again. And Jen's like, but what did that teach you? And what it taught me was I am very protective of the environments that I spend my time in. I am a very fiercely loyal friend, and I want everyone to know that they have a safe place at the table always. And I told Jen at that event, I'm going to host a space like that because I hadn't done it. And so the reason I'm getting kind of weepy is that y'all are sitting in my imposter syndrome superpower. Like you
Yep.
are. And I don't want to make the segment about me. I don't say this to make this about me or about this event. I say I did this work and this event came out of it because what I realized is that inclusion and community meant more to me than I was receiving in my strategy career. And
Yep.
in doing so, if people thought this event was great, if people thought this event was my superpower, it came from the imposter syndrome of nobody likes me. I'm a kid with grade school trauma who almost didn't survive being 12. Why would anybody come to my thing? And the reason anybody would come to my thing is because I was a 12-year-old kid who was so desperate to be liked, I wanted to create safe spaces. Like that's it in real time. And so I hope that when you're seeing that exampling in you, that's really what Jen means about like, not everything happens for a reason, not magical thinking, but like those moments changed you, and they also, wicked, changed you for good. And if we know how to turn that good into service, boom.
Boom.
Right. So Jen, how do we look at ourselves with this more compassionate light and understand that not only is imposter syndrome our superpower, but so many of our things that we have weathered not have made us stronger, but have made us beyond strong, have made us superhuman, have created us. And to use a Jen word, have fostered such phenomenal impact, maybe even beyond our knowing. Like, how do we get back into that mindset of these painful moments of me or these painful thoughts now have purpose? How do we recalibrate?
Well, it's two things. One is, I don't know if you listened to the voice message that I left you this morning, congratulating you. I know, because you've been a little busy, or maybe it was last night. I was congratulating you on creating something for you and putting yourself out there. And I was literally moved to tears, Annie, because I know what it was like for you and I was there. So congratulations on this extraordinary, extraordinary event. You know, I was in Jenny's session earlier today and she did such a good job of like, Hilda, right? How do you take credit for something?
Let me find the book.
Find the book. I would say a couple of things. One is buy my book. That'll give you, find her book and my book. You can grab my book. Tools around how to deal with imposter phenomenon. And Jenny's session in her book, Hilda, she talks about how to take credit and that internal critic and really takes you through a process. It's, it's not the same as the way that I approach it, but it's the same interrupting the automatic there brain pattern and getting present to what's automatically going there. Yes, we've all had things that have happened to us. The question is, what has that taught you? What's been this? How has your brain turned that into a strategy for success that you have wielded for good instead of being the victim of it? Because when you can identify how you've wielded it for good, you can be the author of your own journey. And authorship, if you look at the first four letters of author, authenticity, and authority, this is why I work with leaders to lead with authority, because author, authenticity, authority have the same first four letters, AUTH. That is Greek for self. So all this business of imposter syndrome, how you make it your superpower, is being able to identify what the source of that experience is, earlier, similar. And what you will find is it's some innocuous thought that your brain had. You made it, for me, it was, I just wanted to disappear because everybody was laughing at me. I was 6 years old, chased the little boy I liked, went to kiss him. He went, ew. And I felt like everyone laughed at me and I just wanted to disappear. And if I look at my life and what I said, I'm never going to put myself out there that way. So what did I do? 25 years, started foundations for other people, launched programs for other people, got other people elected. When I ran for office, it was the most horrible experience of my life because I had to put myself out there. And even though I did stand-up comedy for 7 years, I was writing those jokes, but I was being funny because that was also my superpower, is using humor to deflect. When I hung out my own shingle 10 years ago as a coach, whoo, doggy, this is where imposter syndrome began to rear its ugly head. And to have power over it, I say you have to identify the source of it so you can be the author of your own journey.
Yes. And that's the other thing, is like, we talked about stealing other people's IP. Like, that's not authorship. That's not your own journey.
Don't attribute it, which is what this person want to do. I'll say that, but I'll say it's according to you. I'm like, no. And you know what, Annie? You know what I did? I chat GPT deep research into who else has ever said, make imposter syndrome your superpower. And guess what? Nobody. Everything out there on the interwebs, socials, et cetera, is all attributed to me.
Nope, that's Hilda. I got 2 copies of the same book almost. But you know what? Like, when I watched you stand up for your name, if my publisher had put a book out, and I'm also really glad that this happened to you and not me, because it allowed me to go into Sicilian mode and be like, I will fix this.
By the way, there's a very well-known author who book came out by Simon and Schuster, who actually the same thing happened. They spelled it was women of a certain age and they women of a Satan age.
Oh,
and
nice.
Simon and Schuster was like, he put something on Instagram. I forgot the guy's name. And he said, boom, boom, Hilder. That's his Instagram handle. And he said, Simon and Schuster said, oh, we'll send the Sharpies. So he's doing a whole thing. If you come up with why this is a good thing, he will give you a free book. So I sent him a bunch of jokes about why it's a good thing. Sorry,
I freaking adore that. But that again is standing in power instead of taking an imposter syndrome. You could have been like, well, the whole book launch is over.
Right. I'm done. Why did I even put this out? No one's going to read it if my publisher got the name wrong. I had that moment.
I mean, of course you did, but also you didn't go, and actually I'm going to follow through on that. You said, I know who I am. I know why this hurts. I know why this matters. Which y'all go peep the Jenny replay if you want to talk about why things actually matters. Like, why does this matter? And a lot of the time it's because of that imposter syndrome root. It's because Jen doesn't want to be too much, but only knows how to show up as Jen. And when the too muchness comes out, he can't get the toothpaste out the tube. But that little boy on the playground said, Jen, that's too much.
Yep. And I
You know,
disappeared.
and so that's the thing is like, how are you still showing up in a grade school mentality? I don't say that as a slam. I don't say that in a mean way. It might not be grade school, but a lot of this shit really does happen. Psychology, like Jen said,
Yeah.
before age 12. So are you acting like you're in grade school?
Who's driving the bus? Who's
Who's
driving the
driving
bus?
the
That's
bus?
the thing, is that if you don't understand where the source of your imposter syndrome comes from, then that imposter is driving the bus. So like I
Yeah.
had a 6-year-old driving the bus of a 50-year-old woman. You know, you had a 12-year-old driving the bus of a 35-year-old woman. And the problem is not that it's a problem that you decided to, you know, be friends with everybody, or I decided to like push everybody else forward. It's that all of a sudden that bus only went and drive in reverse. And we've
Yep.
gone right and gone to the beach and left and been to the mountains, and we didn't even know it. And once
Yep.
we identify and disrupt that brain pattern, you can do donuts in the parking lot, baby.
I love it. So Jen will be back tomorrow. If this is delighting you and you're like, oh my God, I want to see myself in this new way. I want to live in this woman's head. I want to see, if you want to see yourself how you feel like Jen would see you, you can. Come to
Yeah.
implementation day. If you want to lead like the version of leader that Jen has been and show up as a political organizer and not hate the world, please,
Can I
y'all.
just correct one thing? If you want to show up as yourself, not
Yes,
as I've been, if
yes.
you want to show up authentic to you, because listen, okay, and this is not a correction to you, but I'm reminding myself and everybody
Mhm.
else, when I exiled all those parts of me,
Yes.
I thought I couldn't show up as myself. And the more I showed up as myself, the more grounded I was, the more impact I made. So never show up like me. Never try to be like anybody else. The key is being yourself. And as a coach, all I do is help people unlock that, just like Michelangelo did with David. When he was asked, how did you carve David? The answer was, I took away everything that wasn't David. A good coach asks a lot of questions and just takes away everything that isn't you until the real you appears, because I don't know who that is. Only you do. Only you don't know, because you're walking around with pounds of clay. We just got to get that clay out the way
Yes, get the
today.
clay out the way today. We need a
Yeah.
jingle for that. But
Yeah.
yes, we absolutely do. And nothing's going to trigger imposter syndrome more than actually being an imposter. So the way out of it is not to hide. The way out of it is through.
Yeah.
Jen, the book is Make Imposter Syndrome Your Superpower. It says it is specifically for women in STEM, and it is. Please go buy one for the women in STEM in your life. But this is also for you. If this conversation touched you today, you need this. We've only just scratched the surface on this amazing work that will change your self-perception forever. Jen Coken, the incredible. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for having me. You're
Heck,
amazing.
Raw, real, and just a little dangerous. This is Feral.